most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Fouché Way radio show, live every Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m., sponsored by the nonprofit organization called Canine Hope for Improvement Program, where we hope to improve the quality of our dogs' lives by moving towards a no-kill society. The number here is 818-602-4929. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm interested in getting started today with our guests because there are a lot of things that are happening that I want to get to, but I want you to keep in mind that when we deal with genetic behaviors and learned behaviors, or the old saying, nature versus nurture, I want you to understand that the problem that we run into with our dogs is the learned part, the learned behaviors. And we have those problems because we actually produce the learned behaviors that lead to the death of the animal. The genetic behavior, it is what it is, and that never changes. For millions and millions of years, it's the same. And so that means it's easy to figure it out and to teach us to cope with it. The problem comes when they misinterpret our intentions, the intentions of the human. And they do that because what we do, we are not expecting them to interpret what we are doing in that way. It wasn't our intentions. And so then, if it wasn't our intentions, why did we do it? And the answer is because no one explained to us what we should be doing. And I've explained this before, and I will say it again and again. Breeders bred for subordination. And when they got the alphas, betas, and runts, they were discarded in various ways, good and bad. The idea was to produce a pet that had specific characteristics, and all the information that we were given went with controlling that type of characteristic. So training, rewards, treats, all to help imprint for those specific characteristics. And so this brings me to my first caller, which is Candace, who has a dog named Milos. And he was adopted from the Baldwin Park shelter. Is that right, Candace?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, can you tell our listeners something about him? And how, I know we got him from there, but tell us how you ended up picking him, because this is very important.
So we had been looking for a dog for quite some time, and we'd gone to several different shelters. And when we saw him, he was the first dog that both me and my husband saw and immediately agreed on. He was just beautiful and had a lot of personality, just adorable. And so we both fell in love with him instantly. We did a little bit of research on the breed. He is a Border Collie Husky mix, and we knew it would be a commitment. He would need, some training, high energy dog, but we were so in love with him at that point that we were ready to take on the challenge.
Well, let me ask you. You said that you talked about how he was acting. What was it that actually drew you to him? Is there something?
Well, he has this thing where he lifts up one foot and he shakes his body and the tail goes in a circle, so that gets us every time. So that's when we immediately, when we saw him first, that's what he was doing, so that's what really got us.
Okay. So go on.
So we've had him for over a year now. He's never really been very good at leash walking. He pulls me quite a bit, and my husband as well. And we initially started taking him to dog parks, and he was happy and made friends, played very well. And then one day, things just kind of changed. He stopped playing with other dogs and stuck very close to us and kind of maintained a perimeter. And if another dog did approach, there would be a lot of tension between the dogs and would eventually lead into some fights. And it just kind of progressed to the point where he was picking fights with dogs that didn't want to fight back, that were being submissive to him. And so at that point, we kind of stopped going just out of fear of, something escalating or somebody getting hurt. And so that's been kind of difficult because we really enjoyed taking him there. So the main concerns we have with him are his walking and his aggression towards other dogs.
Okay. You said something earlier, and I want to kind of go back to that. You read about the characteristics of this breed, okay?
Yes.
And I just mentioned that. So I want to kind of touch on that before we move forward. Now, what were those characteristics again? When you read in the book, what did it say?
Well, especially the border collie, they're a herding animal, and as you had mentioned, that's a dog that wants to be in control, obviously, of their herd, of their pack. And then, just very high energy dog and more of a dominant dog.
Mm-hmm. And what did it say that it was going to need from you in order for you to take this dog?
To be in control of it more than anything, and I'm certainly not.
Okay. And you know what? When you read stuff like that, energetic, high energy, needs a lot of this, a lot of that, has a tendency to do the way that we have to read that is that those are the characteristics that the owner has to have.
Yes, yeah.
That's really what they're saying. They're saying, look, these are the characteristics that you're going to need in order to deal with that dog, because if you don't, then these are the characteristics that this dog is going to be using against you.
Yes. Yeah.
So I just want everyone, when you read stuff like that, understand, I want you to know that they're talking about what you have to be. Okay? Because, we try to give that to the dog, but if that's not who we are, then it doesn't work. And that's where the whole thing, couch potato and things like that come in. If that's what you are, don't get that. It's what you've got to be. And if you're not that, then that's how the dog is going to be treating you. So you start having these fights. Now, this is very important because your lifestyle changed, and I always talk about the relationship. Okay? And your lifestyle changed with your dog. It was different from when you first got him. Is that correct?
Yes. So just, work schedules, school schedules changed. So he was alone a lot more than at the beginning. And that's, around that time, maybe at that point we didn't put two and two together, but it is around that time that he began to be a little bit more protective.
Mm-hmm. And that change was both you and your husband.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And that's when you started seeing the stress. So the first, and I'm going step by step because I want our listeners to kind of see if this is happening to them. So it's like one day you go to the dog park and all of a sudden this guy's different, right? It may not start out aggression right away. It starts off like clinging to you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice that?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what happened. He just, he used to take off and pretend he didn't even know us when we were there, just run right by, and then it got to the point where he was always, touching us or within a foot of us. So it was a big change, and it was just, seemed overnight. Just one day we went, and it never went back to how it was. Right,
and the reason for that is the things were happening at home where you were leaving him before when you normally weren't. And so he began to feel, now this is that border collie part of him, okay, that he feels like he's got to continue to round you up. He's got to control you because you're out of control. You're leaving his sight. You're leaving him. You get it?
Yes. Yes, I certainly can.
Exactly. So then it starts to show itself in the park, and you're like, what is this? Before we're trying to call you, you're not coming to us. Now we can't get you away. And then it leads, right?
Yeah.
And it leads from that to now I'm going to, because it's an emotional thing, I'm going to step it up, and now I'm becoming emotionally connected in a way where I'm being protective. Starting to be, once he starts controlling you, because sometimes we kind of like that. When the dog is right up under us, we touch them, we say, hey, what's the matter? Go on and play.
Yeah.
Right? Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's all right. We're rewarding a mindset. And he's thinking, stay away from us. And so one day, he loses his bite inhibition. He lunges at a dog, or a dog lunges at him, and they have that first emotional fight. And then the owner say, oh my gosh, we got to get out of the dog park.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we leave on, that note.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It was a walk of shame every time.
Yeah. And then that is when our life begins to change. And so when that happened, then what is it that you started to do? I mean, did you try to compensate from not being able to go to the park to do something else?
You know what? If we couldn't go to the park, we'd probably just go on a longer walk, and subconsciously probably giving him more attention, and then leading into playing more games with him. And, that would be tug-of-war, playing with the ball in the backyard, just trying to burn off some energy in different ways. So that's probably, the next step we took at that point.
Okay. So I want you to follow me. I want our listeners to follow me, because when we start to compensate now, the compensation that we actually begin, the direction, is that we start to bring out more of this behavior that he's displaying in the dog park, okay? Meaning, now we play the game of tug-of-war, which is to challenge the human. That's what tug-of-war says. I'm the leader, and I want you to challenge me. So we embolden the dog. We start throwing balls, which brings out the predatory instinct in the dog. We start giving them toys, and we will start off, most people always start off by giving them toys that resemble other animals because they can't be with other animals, right? And then we start seeing the professional skills that the dogs develop. They become like surgeons, taking the eyeballs out, the tail off. Am I right? Does that sound about right?
Oh, yeah. He had a squirrel, and I think only the tail is left on the toy. It's just ridiculous.
Exactly. And then we look at the dog and we say, oh, he's so cute. He's carrying his little toy around, his baby, his little friend, but he just killed his friend. And the only reason that we eliminate these kinds of things is because it becomes expensive for us. I buy them toys and they tear them up right away. Well, that's what he thinks you want him to do. So now you've created this Frankenstein, this wolf man. I call them wolf man because they're half human and half dogs. What we imprint on them, and then what we're dealing with genetically.
Yeah.
And so now we've boxed ourselves into this corner, this prison, this way of life that we can't take it anymore. And then we start looking at, maybe we should give this dog up. Maybe he's not the dog for us. Maybe we should turn him into the shelter, And those who have more of an emotional connection to their dogs. I mean, the reason that you went to the shelter to get him, and how he imprinted on you because of his behavior, holding a paw up or looking sideways at us, and that emotional thing that pulled on our heartstrings caused us to get him, that comes back into play. And we say, I can't give him to the shelter. I've got to find some help. Right?
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you go on the quest. You're on the internet. You're talking to people. I mean, some people try a lot of different trainers. What happened with you?
You're the first trainer we went to, and we were actually originally looking for somewhere that would do boarding as well as some training, and just read all of the amazing reviews that you had, and it was at the point where we were ready to do this and ready to do whatever it was going to take, and so we saw you last week, and it's we're just so excited at the possibility.
Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people who I talk to, and I try to be affordable for them. I mean, personally, I don't think it's expensive at all. When you think about, I'm going to have this dog for 15 years, and if this information that I can give you, whether it's a phone call or whether I see the dog and evaluate the dog, if you were to break it down in pennies, it would be less than a penny.
Yeah.
And so this is how we have to think. We got to say, I'm 15 years of being with this dog. Am I going to continue to suffer for 15 years, or am I going to spend a few pennies and solve this problem?
Yeah.
And that's basically what it boils down to. And so when you came to me and you walked in my door, I told you, I know that mind. Remember?
Yes. Yeah.
I said, I've got that same mind outside.
Yeah.
And then Leroy, who's with us today online, he knew exactly who I was talking about, right? Without me even telling him. I mean, he said, yeah, I was already thinking who that was.
Yeah.
I always say that my place is one flew over the cuckoo's nest, because people always ask me, why do you have so many dogs? And I say, well, because in order for me to solve your dog's problem, I got to have seen it already. I got to live with it,
Yeah.
I got to have experienced it, and I knew that. And we've got some video of your dog that I don't think it's up, but we have a picture of your dog on Facebook. But we got some video of that particular dog that I was telling you about that actually disciplined your dog. Remember seeing that?
Yes. Yeah, they even look alike.
That was the only dog that disciplined him like that, because they have the same mind.
Yeah,
and your
it was
dog,
amazing that they found each other right away.
Yeah, and your dog says, "Oh my gosh, you're more dominant than me." Right? Do you remember seeing that on his face?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, it was such a relief to see him with other dogs and not being aggressive and listening, and gave us a lot of hope. So it was wonderful.
It takes a pack to do that. It takes the alphas, betas, subordinates, and runts. It takes all of what nature has to help your dog. That's the reason that we have packs. When someone mentioned to me, there are no free-reigning packs in Los Angeles. So, Brandon, why do we need a pack? Because all of the information to help your dog is right there in that pack. That same mind is out there. It's like meeting someone in the street that has gone through what you've gone through, and you begin to talk, and they begin to help you. You see?
Yes.
And that's what you ended up doing. In those videos that you saw, you said, wow, this is great to see him playing. And then when you came to pick him up, because I'm always evaluating to see if this is genetic behavior or learned behavior, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter, to me, I'm going to find out what it is, but I've got to explain it to you in a way that you understand. And the best way for me to do that is to demonstrate to you what you need to do or why you came to the problem that you have. And I did something in my place, and I want our listeners to know, your husband likes to play tug-of-war with this dog. Or he did, remember?
Yes.
And so what I did was I challenged him at one point. And tell our listeners what he did.
He growled at you.
He growled at me.
But he did submit. He challenged you, but eventually you got him down.
Now, I want you to think about this, because when we teach our dogs that we are beneath them by doing dominant, assertive things with them, the way that we do it, the humanizing way that we do it, we lose. And I know trainers have said, even behavioralists have said, you can play tug-of-war with your dog as long as you win. But in the psychology of the dog's mind, the moment that you say, play tug-of-war, challenge me, you have already lost. Mm-hmm. And that was the example of that. And that's why you can't control him from his negative behaviors, because he doesn't see you as above him.
Yeah.
Okay? And then the toys. This is a big deal, because when we humanize this thing, it's difficult for us to believe that love and affection and all the wonderful things that we want to do for our dog can create aggression. But if we humanize this thing and we say, well, if we give a child everything they want and make life wonderful for them and take away all the stress and all the problems, we've seen kids have temper tantrums and become aggressive. And so I have found that this is the most difficult part of working with animals, is the owners trying to get you to adopt this philosophy. And so, since this is the first time that we're actually talking about what I'm getting ready to talk about now, and I want you to express to our listeners, how important is the love and affection to you in the beginning, and how important is it now?
I wouldn't say that it's any less important. You know, like to me, and in my human brain, I'd always, he just, he's so cute, and I just, you know, want to hug him and touch him all the time. But after speaking with you and you know, hearing it from the dog brain, I understand the problems that it is creating. And as hard as it is for me not to do that, I know that I can't do that at this point, and that, you know, he's not going to get offended or anything, and that's just how it will have to be for a bit. But it is very important, and I see that now. Okay,
that's good. And here's the thing. I mean, you've got some work to do, and the better that you become at doing the things that I tell you to do, the quicker your dog is going to change. But what you've seen so far for just visiting me, you have seen a difference in your dog. Is that correct?
I have, yes. Yeah. We at least we now have, you know, some techniques and you know, where it is improving.
Right. All right. Well, look, I want you to continue. I want to see him again. I know he's going to be boarding with me, which is going to be great for him, which is going to give me more information to make it easier for you. You know?
Yes.
I'll do all the work of the rehabilitation and helping him, and then explain it to you in a way that's going to make it easier for you to implement these problems, okay, these changes. So
I'm very much looking forward to it.
Okay, well, I'm thankful to have you on today, and I can't wait to see him again very shortly, okay?
Well, I'm thankful to you as well. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Well, I'd like to say something before we go to our next caller. You know, I had the pleasure of attending a meeting at LA City Animal Services the other day, and where they were talking about a concept of safer testing, which is actually a behavioral testing on dogs and cats to see if they are aggressive. And they would probably say, well, it's not just to see if they were aggressive, it's other things, and, you know, of course, I understand. Well, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to be a behavioralist or a trainer or train to be those things to know if a dog is aggressive. All you have to do is put the dog in a strange environment and the signs can be produced. We don't need to train people to be trainers in order to spot that. But once we do spot it, whether you're a trainer or not, we need to practice rehabilitation, not training, not a training program. And rather than spending money on the education to educate dogs that have been screwed up by us, we need to train and educate the public. We need to educate the public about the psychology of the dog and the cat. It's the consumer, the ones that are adopting the animals. Don't just think that this problem is originating in the dog, and so they are the ones that need help. It's us. That's why this show is here, to give us a test, if you will, a safer test for us on how much we know about the one we love and why we are having problems. You know, I sat in that room and I watched a group of people talking about how they want to help dogs. And I believe they do want to help dogs. Made up of professionals, a room full of attorneys, deciding what to do with our beloved creatures, our pets. from the concept of animal law, which I see. I know animal law is very powerful. I'm in court. I see it. I see the power that they have. But the whole time I'm thinking there is another law that is more powerful, and that is the law of nature. That all dogs, alphas, betas, subordinates, and runts are bound to. It is in their genetic code, and they cannot escape it. They can't escape it. And so I was thinking, which law should we be looking to solve our problem? Which law should we be studying night and day to understand? You see, the people, the consumers, the ones of the dogs before they end up in the shelter, before they get there, they're the ones that should be asking the questions like, why does my dog do this when I do that? If I do this, why does he do that? How can I prevent negative behaviors? All of these questions and more should be available. That's the not one for the dog. As a comedian said once, I was flabbergasted. Just sitting there listening to this. First motion, the second motion. Which motion's on the table now? All those in favor say aye. What the heck? People, you have to wake up. Audience, ladies and gentlemen, hear me clearly. It is up to you to save our dogs, not the institutions. They are doing what they have to do, what they have now been created to do. I want you to understand that. And I was just, I was shocked. And so my second guess is Rona. I just had to throw that out there. My second guess is Rona, and Rona has a very beautiful dog named Roscoe with a very interesting story. And I have also Leroy Singh online. He's one of my right-hand person there. He is. And we want to talk about some things along with Rona. So, Rona, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. Rona, you got a really interesting story here. And I'd like to start off by saying that you were referred to me by Donnie.
Yes.
And
yes.
Donnie also is a very interesting and unique person that I respect. And Donnie came to me because he had a problem with his dog, and I don't think he has a problem with me telling this, but he had a problem with aggression, and his dogs were fighting each other. He has multiple dogs. Actually, one of the first dogs that I started out with, how many does he have? 4 Cocker Spaniels? He has
4 Springer Spaniels.
Springer Spaniels, right. And they got into a fight, and Donnie got his finger bit off.
Right.
And there's some other things happened, and that's how Donnie ended up coming to me, and we were able to solve this problem, and now I think everything's great over there, right?
It is indeed. They're truly wonderful dogs.
Right. And, he is a very interesting person because, he will rescue a dog no matter where it is, even if it's in another state. And this is where you ended up with Roscoe. Can you kind of tell us that story?
Yes, I unfortunately had lost a devoted kitty a couple of months ago, and I just love animals, but I wasn't ready for another cat. And my husband and I had been talking about getting a dog eventually, and Donnie's sister is also very much into animals and saving animals, and she had said to him, Donnie, there's a wonderful dog down here in North Carolina. Could you help him? He was on the street for a while, and he had been rescued, and the people who rescued him brought him back to the house, hoping he would get along with their other dog. When he didn't, he was brought back to the shelter. Sometime in and amongst this, I'm not even sure where, Roscoe broke his leg in 2 places. She asked Donnie to send down some money to help repair his leg.
Mm-hmm.
So he did, and so he was shipped to the vet. He got fixed and then shipped back to the shelter, which was a kill shelter.
Mm.
Donnie's sister called Donnie and said, well, now what are you going to do? And he said, what do you mean? He said, well, this is an unbelievable dog.
Mm-hmm.
He's border collie with some black lab. He's incredibly smart. He's got a lot of personality, all this wonderful things. And Donnie said, well, I guess I can fly him up here and try to find a family for him.
Mm.
So he flew him from North Carolina to here in Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
and he had what he thought was a great home for Roscoe, with a family with a young girl. And they were actually deciding whether or not they were going to give the dog to their girl or make her earn it.
Mm.
Meanwhile, I had seen a picture of Roscoe, and I just fell in love. There was just something about this dog that tugged on my heartstrings. And I was actually there the day that Roscoe made it to Donnie's, and Donnie pulled him out of his travel cage, and he was, I guess, on drugs for pain medication for his leg. It was kind of in a soft cast, and he was a little wonky, but he was very sweet, and Donnie ended up keeping him for another month because he took them to his vet and had him reoperated on because it was just kind of a botched job. Mm. I was able to spend some time with Roscoe and really fell in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
So when the time came that Donnie said, this other family doesn't want him, do you want him? I took him.
Mm.
And so from my house, well, I guess from North Carolina to my house, in a span of about 2.5 months, he was at 5 or 6 different places. So he kind of had a trust issue.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot for a little puppy.
Yeah, it is. He's somewhere around 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So when I took him, he had some work to do. He had a few issues, but I could see he was a very loving dog. But that's why I brought him to you to see how, because I saw he had issues, but because I've never had a dog before, I wanted to do it right. You know what I mean?
I want to stop you there. It's very interesting. For you to say I never had a dog before, and then you adopt a dog that you're really going to get a lesson here, you know, because you're dealing with genetic behaviors and learned behaviors.
Right.
And this is a very smart dog. And I'm not to say that all dogs aren't smart, but what this dog was bred for, okay, genetically within him, makes him intelligent. These are dogs that have no problem disciplining because they were designed to discipline sheep, cattle, things like that. And
right.
They're intelligent, so they're able to work on their own. So they require freedom and dominance. Okay?
Right.
And for a person that's never had a dog before, I mean, people listening, I really want you to take heed to what we're getting ready to talk about here, because, you know, it's very interesting even to me, and I do this every day. When I heard you say, you know, my first time having a dog, the first thing in my mind is, oh my gosh, does she know what she's in for? And so just tell us what started to take place.
Well, from being with you, I learned a lot. We were doing everything, not everything, but a lot of things wrong in the sense that we were holding him back on his leash, trying to get him to heal and doing all the things that we've seen other people do with their dogs without taking into consideration the breed or anything like that. And that was a huge epiphany for me. But, you know, I just know that there are so many unloved dogs out there, and I just love animals so much that I really wanted a rescue. Mm-hmm. Because you know what? Humans aren't perfect. We have our issues too. We're a product of how we were brought up and the people that we interact with. So why are animals any different?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I was listening to what you were saying with, was it Candy?
Mm-hmm. Candace. Mm-hmm.
Candace, when you were saying that you wanted to match the personality and that border collies, because hers was a border collie mix as well, I am that person. I can be aggressive, and I'm really bouncy, and I can be a little bossy.
Right.
But that pretty much described me, and they always say that we get dogs that are kind of like us and look like us. That's kind of what Roscoe is. So he's like the dog version of me. So perhaps in some ways we're kindred spirits, but I get him.
Right.
You know, and Bobby's a lot like that too. He's quieter than I am, but he can be just as aggressive and wacky. So in that sense, I think it's a good match.
Bobby's your mate.
Yes,
Okay.
he's my other half. So in doing this, bottom line is we wanted to learn how to fix us as opposed to how to fix the dog. And from Donnie's experience, we knew that it made sense to ask you to look him over and see what the issues were that we could work on.
Yeah, and you know, I always say there are no two dogs that are alike, and I'm sure you can appreciate there are no two people that are alike.
Absolutely.
And so what I may tell one person to do with their dog, I will tell someone else something different. And so in this case, I said, no, he needs freedom. Don't make him walk behind you. Don't make him heel. Put him on a long lead, right? Start bringing out the intelligence of the dog first. What was this dog bred for? It's a dog first, and then what was it brought here for? Second, right? And so,
he's a working dog.
Right. And so what I told you to let him go, to release him, you saw a whole different dog.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you were trying to train him. You were trying to control him. You were trying to produce hormones and put them in places where they shouldn't be. And so your dog just seemed more quackier, crazier. You know, and he's barking at people. He's lunging at dogs. He's showing this aggression. I mean, it's like, you know, at some point you think, man, I can't deal with this. I can't go through all this. And you realize this is a very simple fix.
Right. And, you know, it's an ongoing process, just like anything.
Right. I mean, that's why we call it rehabilitation.
Go ahead.
That's why we call it rehabilitation, is for the life of the dog.
Right. And he is getting better and better. And when we take him to the dog park, you had suggested that we take him to the dog park because it's an enclosed space, and we keep the leash on him, but we let it go.
Right.
And we kept walking, and dogs came up to him, and he was a little nervous, but it was interesting because he was not aggressive. And he let them sniff him, and he sniffed a little bit, but pretty much he just stayed with us. And we walked around without stopping, and the only time he got a little growly was when there was a persistent pointer who was sniffing a little bit too much in a sensitive area. So I would get a little cranky as well if someone did that. But it was an appropriate growl.
Yeah,
you know?
and
the dog left him alone, and it was interesting. There was an aggressive German Shepherd who came up to him, and he put him in this dog is like twice his size, and without hesitation, Roscoe was like, "Oh, I don't think so," and the dog just turned tail and left. So I know it's like, all right, this dog can take care of himself, and we just let him be. And we did that for a couple of times, and the third or fourth time we went to the dog park, we just took the leash off. And he started to interact with the dogs a little bit more, but would continue to come back to us if he kind of looked around and didn't know where we were, and like, oh no, oh there you are, and he would run over to us. And I'm noticing that when I am walking him, does he still pull if he wants to go home or whatever? Of course he does. Do I let him lead? No. But he's much less aggressive, and it takes a lot less to say, yo, we're going this way.
Right, I like that.
It's only a couple of tugs, and it's like, no, we're not doing that. And then he's like, oh, okay.
But you're giving him freedom.
When someone walks the other way, he'll wag his tail and go up and sniff them, but he's not barking. If he sees another dog, he does jump a little bit and bark at them, but he's wagging his tail like he wants to go play with them.
Right, and you know why this is working is because there's what's called fight or flight, okay?
Right.
Before you were preventing his flight, and so he fought.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're giving him the freedom of choice, and he's making the correct decision because he's able to go out and come back, go out and come back. So you're not interfering with that moment.
Right.
You know, and that was the reason why I told you, hey, you got to take this guy to the dog park. Somebody else, I would say, no, don't go to the dog park yet. You know, and you would have thought, oh, no, that's the opposite. I'm never going to go to the dog park because of what he's doing. And that's why I said, no, you got to go. You got to go in there and let him make some decisions.
Right.
And in talking about the dog park, I have Leroy on the line. What's up, Lee? Can you hear me?
Hey.
Yeah, okay. We're talking about the dog park here, man. And
yeah.
And you know firsthand, because that's your thing, the dog park. And we hear problems all the time. And we've got some video that's on the Fouché Way Facebook page with Marcus in the dog park. And if you guys remember the name, that was a German Shepherd that we had on the show a few times back that actually got into it with some little dogs. He grabbed some little dogs. And if you go there, you'll see him interacting, being in there with a bunch of little dogs. But we have this problem, and Leroy, you can, attest to this.
Well, usually when you go to the dog park, they have the small dog and the big dog area.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, mostly all the little dogs are in the big dog park.
Why is that?
These people are playing.
Why?
I guess they feel like their dogs need to be in the big dog area.
Now,
I barely see people in the little dog park.
Now, do some of these little dogs have problems? Fear, aggression?
Yeah. A lot of them fear, just really fearful. Some people are in there playing fetch with them, and the little dogs are actually attacking the big dogs, the other little dogs. They come in there with little clothes on and things like that. And some of those dogs, they're so small.
Right.
To where, people are in the park playing fetch with their dogs. And these dogs are going maybe 10, 15 miles per hour running across the park. And this little dog is just taking his time going past. And this dog runs them over. That dog could be killed or injured.
So let me ask you now, if they bring a little dog in that has fear issues or problems, and they start something, when something happens and the little dog gets hurt, does that person blame the big dog, or do they say, well, it's my fault, he was a little dog and I shouldn't have had him?
No, the big dogs get blamed right away. The little dog, because he's little or she's little, she gets the pass. She gets a pass from lunging at the big dog, and if the big dog corrects the little dog, then it's a problem. Most likely the owner of the big dog is going to get the end of the stick.
Well, let me ask you now, and because I haven't been to the dog park in a while, but can the big dogs go into the little dog park? Is that
no, that can't happen. There's no big dogs allowed in the little dog park.
And why is that?
At all. That's just the rule.
So the logical reason is that a big dog could hurt a little dog. That's the reason why he can't be in there. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, big dog is in a small dog park. People are going to say, wait, this dog is way too big to be in here. You got to get him out of here.
And so Okay, so Rona, you're at the dog park. There's all kinds of things going on at the dog park. People go there. For me, I always tell my clients, go to the dog park to socialize. And what that means is you take a few laps around the dog park and you're out of there. If your dog doesn't play, you just take a few laps and you're out of there. If your dog plays, let him play, but keep moving. That's the rule. Yeah. That's what you do, Leroy, right? You keep moving in the dog park.
Yeah. I constantly keep going in a circle.
And Rona, are you doing the same thing?
I am indeed.
Okay, good. Now, here's the thing. Are there people throwing balls, and do they have toys in the dog park too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, all the time.
Oh, yeah, they have everything.
Okay, so then what that means is that, because I remember when you throw a ball and the person's throwing the ball for their dog runs after, another dog runs up, gets the dog first, and you hear things like, well, your dog should know that ball doesn't belong to him. Do you hear that, Leroy? Come on.
I hear it all the time. I've seen it happen so many times where this one dog, this guy brings in two dogs, and he has a squeaker in the ball.
Oh my God.
And he goes all the way to the back of the park and think he's just gonna throw it for that one dog, and it never happens because the dog is constantly chewing on it, and that squeak is going, and other dogs immediately run to the back to see what's going on, and he's constantly throwing it, and then next thing you know, it's a big fight in the back of the park, all over a squeaky ball.
A squeaky toy. A toy. You bring your dog to the park to socialize with other dogs and then create jealousy. And that just, I don't know. Look, Rona, you're there. I mean, how does that make sense to you? I mean, I hope you don't run into that. But
well, I actually, it's interesting because I take my my dog to the Santa Monica Airport dog park, and it's a decent size. Is it giant like the one up on Mulholland? No, but it's enough where the dogs can certainly run around. And these owners come with the plastic ball throwers.
Yeah, the chuckets.
Yeah, and then they bounce the ball so it goes really high, and then there's like 8 dogs that are going for this one ball, and then they start growling at each other. I was like, are you an idiot?
Right. Well, here's
don't you see what you're doing? I mean, I'm not an expert, and I can see it.
Well, look, what you're saying is, hey, dogs, every dog in the dog park, look, I got some prey here. And I'm going to throw it, and I want all of you guys to compete for it, and whoever wants it the most will get to it the fastest. Right?
Right. Party over here.
Exactly. And we know some of these dogs are spoiled, and they can tell that some dog is getting there faster than them, and that starts a fight.
Yeah.
Because prey is supposed to belong to the one who's in charge. Right? So when you get it, that's supposed to be your food. But because it's not food and it doesn't complete the cycle of life, in other words, you don't eat it, then the game becomes neurotic. Now it's just about prey. Okay? And then some dogs you'll see, they're in the vet having surgery because they swallowed the ball.
Huh.
And why do they swallow the ball? Because the hormone is in place to kill and to eat. And it doesn't matter that it's an object that should not be eaten. The hormone is in place. And so they swallow it. And some dogs will swallow 2 or 3 tennis balls. And it costs you thousands of dollars. And we can't figure out, I don't know why he's chewing tennis balls. Well, let's teach him to sit. I mean, so look, what I'm saying, and the reason I'm bringing this up is, in nature, in the wild, the alphas don't necessarily have to do things to keep their crew entertained. Just being with them, the genetic code of being with them is enough to know that they are being cared for, security, that there's food, that there's water, that they're protected. That genetic trait has never left the dog, no matter how much breeding humans have done or interfered with that. It's still there. Your quality of life with your dog is that they just want to be with you. And are you seeing that, Rona?
Well, when you and I were chatting last night, I told you I can't use the bathroom without him wanting to come in with me. Mm-hmm. Like, I can do this by myself. Thank you very much. I mean, I can just go into the other room because I forgot a pencil, and I turn around and he's right there.
But you don't reward him for that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't do anything. He just follows me.
Good, because you don't want to create a neurotic behavior. I mean, that's a normal genetic thing for them to follow the pack leader. But if you turned around and started being submissive and subordinate to him, thinking that you're being loving, then you start to change the order of things. Then it becomes neurotic. You see? Then when you start leaving, they start jumping out windows and chewing down doors and creating a prison for themselves because they get put in crates.
Right.
So this is what I mean by understanding a dog from the inside out. And I want to say one other thing, even though Candace is not online, in regards to the meeting that I went through the other day and the safer testing and all of that. When she got her dog, it passed. It was able to be adopted. It was a nice, sweet dog. And that's the reason that they adopted him, right? Then
Right.
once he got out of the shelter and life began to happen with its owners, the mindset of the dog changed, right? So that's why I'm saying the testing that we're going to do on the dog, they may pass or they may fail. But ultimately, it is the owners, the consumer, that's going to have to make this thing work. And that's why it's irrelevant to test the dog. I mean, we know if he's aggressive, he's growling, he's biting or whatever, so we need to, get him out of that situation and help him. But it doesn't mean that things are not going to change later, So with me talking to you and telling you what to do and giving you some things to do, concrete things, nothing that has to do with training, you've been successful, right?
That's right. I have.
So you would be one that says, no, I need the training, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that I said to you when I first walked in. I need to know what I have to do because it's all about my behavior.
And you did it, and you're doing it.
I take direction well.
Yeah, you sure do. Oh, my gosh, look at the time. We are rolling. Rona, I want to thank you. I want you to continue doing. Don't hesitate to call me. I mean, you have been pretty good at that. At first you weren't, but now you are. And I want to say thank you to Candace for being on. And Leroy, I mean, I don't have to say anything to you. You're the man. You know everything about what's going on at the park, and you're the guy that does that. But I just wanted you to give your perspective. And I want to thank our listeners. And again, tune in next week. Facebook us. Go on Twitter. Let's talk. Let's put something together where we can help. We don't have to wait till next year for a safer test or any other kind of test or program that's out there. We can save our dogs today with just a little bit of knowledge that has nothing to do with training. We can make a change overnight. Thank you once again for listening to the Fouché Way radio show.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.